How do you fix these broken car mods on Assetto Corsa that just don't drive right? Continuing from where I left last time, I'd like to look at what the bump steer looks like on this car. So, I'm going to rise the car little by little, and keep an eye on these tow values. Right now, both the front and the rear have about a degree of towing. As we get closer to where the mod maker has designed the car to sit at right height, the tow values get closer to 0. And past that into droop travel we get tow out. And the higher the suspension rises, the more tow out we get. We are already at 1 degree tow out, and the car is barely at the OEM ride height. With a real car, you could lift the car with an ordinary floor jack. I don't have a lift here, so I am altering the spring rates instead. I just want to see where the tires point when the suspension moves. That's what is called bump steer. Over 2 degrees of bump steer in the rear. Yeah, that's not good. So what? Why not? Bump steer towing, when it happens in the rear, it causes understeer. The car doesn't turn as much as the driver wants. To explain why, let's look at a freeze frame of the car taking a corner. So you have droop out on the inside tires pointing towards the corner inside, and bump in on the outside tires, also pointing towards the inside of the corner. Both of the rear tires are trying to steer the rear towards the inside of the corner. Also known as active towing. Not that this Subaru should have active towing. It shouldn't have a multi-link suspension either. It should have a strut suspension. Anyway, the rear ends up fighting against the front and prevents the car from turning. Think of a canoe with 2 paddlers trying to make a turn. If the front paddler tries to make a left turn and the rear paddler tries to make a right turn, they won't be turning anywhere. They will just keep going straight. That's because the paddlers cancel out the rotational momentum they are each making. So, how come we were able to lift the car up without editing the suspension files? It's thanks to this setup.ini file. We can add adjustment options for suspension height, stiffness, bump stops and packers, etc. And no one's to stop us from making the adjustment range go all the way up to unreasonably high or negligibly low. That's how we can check various alignment values quickly in game at different ride heights. I'll show it one more time and plot the tow values on a graph. So, to convert this Subaru to strut suspension, I can use the front suspension as a template. Instead of the upper control arm values, you have strut top and strut tire. In fact, I'm just replacing the whole lot with the front suspension values to start with. It just makes it easier, but I'll still come in and keep the old ones, just in case. It doesn't look anything like the rear suspension of a Subaru at this stage, but it doesn't really matter either. From here I'll just move the points around until it looks roughly like the real thing. Alright, that took some time, but not that difficult. Let's open up the game now and see how the changes worked. We now get bump tow out in the front, which is good, just maybe not this much. Practically no toe change in the rear. The camber gain is a bit dramatic for a strut suspension in the rear. And the camber goes into the positives when the suspension droops at all. Likely because the control arms are at a pretty drastic angle, now that the suspension has been raised as well. So what needs to be done is to reduce the toe change up front, and lower all the control arm pickups. Bump steer depends on the locations of the toe control arm points relative to the control arms. To reduce bump toe out, I'm going to place the inner toe control arm pivot closer towards the lower control arm pivot. Lowering all the inner pivot points is going to reduce camber gain. I'll do that for the rear as well, but I'll leave the toe geometry be because it is good. I have made an error with the front toe. It's worse than before. What do you think I did wrong there? An easy way to achieve zero bump steer is to just align the toe arm pivots with the control arm pivots. Then I'll just try and guess the correct position to get just the right amount of bump out, without committing any decimal errors that would make a huge mess at this point. Lastly, just a minor change in the front geometry, mere millimeters this time, and the obvious. Steering is in the opposite direction. Left is right, and right is left. Can't have that. After that, I think it's finally time for the test drive. And for me to thank you for making it this far in the video. Thanks for watching. See ya.